It was only 7 o'clock, and it seemed likely, therefore, that rather than being up early, she hadn't actually been to bed at all. Small and thin, Terry was dressed, as usual, in the manner of a deranged Victorian governess. She had the pale pallor of a 3-day-old corpse on her cheek, and, despite the dark and the unlit stair, was wearing Wayfarer Ray-Bans. Although I had opened the door, Terry's finger remained on the doorbell, as if she had been struck by rigor mortis while pressing it. I forcibly removed the finger, almost having to break it in the process. She held out a hand, palm up, and said, "Give me your George Eliot essay." Her face as expressionless as an assassin's. "Or what? Die?" "Fuck off," she said succinctly, and lit up a cigarette in the manner of a film noir villainess. I shut the door on her, and went back to bed and the warm, slack body of Bob, with whom I lived in urban squalor in a festering tenement attic in Peyton's Lane, former residence of Dundee's reviled yet noble-hearted poet, William Topaz McGonagall. Bob rolled over and muttered some of his usual sleep gibberish. "A leopard's gonna miss a train. Gotta find that radish," and so on. Bob, known by some people as Magic Bob, but for reasons which were obscure and not based on any sleight of hand on Bob's part, was in fact an unmagic Essex boy. Ilford born and bred, although when he remembered, he affected a monotonous, vaguely northern accent to give himself more credibility with his peers. Like me, Bob was a student at Dundee University, but said that if he had been in charge of the university, he would have thrown himself out. He seldom handed in an essay, and considered it a point of honour never to go to a lecture, and instead lived the slow life of a nocturnal sloth, smoking dope, watching television, and listening to Led Zeppelin on his headphones. Bob had recently discovered that he was in his final year of university. He had already repeated second year twice, a university record, and for a long time had presumed that somehow he would remain a student forever, a misconception that had only recently been cleared up. He was supposed to be studying for a joint degree in English and philosophy. If people asked him what his degree was in, he always said, "Joints," which he thought was a brilliant joke. Bob's sense of humour, such as it was, had been developed by the goons and honed by the monkeys. Bob's screen hero was Mickey DeLentz, right back to Mickey's early days as Corky in Circus Boy. Bob was an unreconstructed kind of person. His other hero was Fritz the cat, and he had a complete lack of interest in anything that involved a sustained attention span. Nor was he political in any way, despite the 3 unopened volumes of Das Kapital on his bookshelf, which he never could explain, although he had a vague memory of joining a radical Marxist splinter group after seeing If at the cinema. He was prone to the usual obsessions and delusions of boys his age. The Klingons, for example, were as real for Bob as the French or the Germans, more real certainly than, say, Luxemburgers. The doorbell rang again, less insistently this time, and when I opened the door, Terry was still there. "Let me in," she said weakly. "I think I got frostbite." Terry was a little Midwestern princess, a cheerleader gone bad. She may have once had corn-fed kin back in the heartland, although it was easier to imagine her being hatched in the nest of a prehistoric bird. But in time they had all either died or abandoned her. Her father, an executive with Ford, had enrolled her in an English Quaker boarding school during a brief secondment to Britain, and had carelessly left her there on his return to Michigan. Terry liked to keep her ethnic origins chameleon, sometimes hinting at Italian, sometimes pogrom-fleeing Russian, a touch of the Orient, a hint of the Hebrew. Only I knew the dull mongrel mix of Irish navvies, Dutch dairymen, and Belgian coal miners, who by mere genetic chance had given her the appearance of an exotic houri